Hi everyone, and welcome to my kitchen build video. Whether I'll get all this done in one video or not, I don't know, because it's quite a major project. So the kitchen, I've been looking forward to this for quite some time, but also I think along the way I've been learning little techniques with woodworks, fitting hinges, and not done any drawer runners yet, but I've done some research on those, and I'm hoping that that'll work out okay, because I've never built anything like this before. I think you need to give yourself some time when you're designing your kitchen for your van. There's loads and loads of different ways of doing it, but it depends what it's made of. If it's made of chipboard, that may not survive very long in a van. Chipboard is not very good when it's moving about, so where all the hinges fit into the carcass, with the cupboards sort of jiggling about, eventually they're going to come loose, and once chipboard's ripped out, it's pretty much done. Also, they will be very heavy. I think also it's been quite good to have some time to keep thinking about the kitchen, the design, what you're going to do. This furniture board has got so expensive. This is the Chambord stuff from Magnum's, and it's probably one of the cheaper products about for van building at the minute, and this is like £110 a sheet. I'm not building the kitchen really out of this because it would cost a fortune. When I've been screwing into it and drilling it and stuff like that, it's not as dense as a decent plywood. But obviously what I do want is the finish of this on the kitchen, and so what I'm going to do, I'm going to build a carcass, and I've chosen to build it out of 18mm ply, which is quite heavy. Two things: the 18mm ply is very substantial to screw things into. You can use it as well very successfully for doing pocket holes, either into or through. But what I'm going to do, like in the sides of the panels where there's nothing there, I'm actually going to cut out panels, and I think maybe if I get plastic baskets, JYSK do some really good storage solutions. But where I can, where it's relatively hidden within the carcass, I'm going to cut out panels over the length of the kitchen, and overall that is going to reduce the weight. I'm getting set up this morning. I've cleaned the van out a little bit. Pretty much one of the things that is dictating one of the dimensions of this kitchen is the fridge. In this instance, this fridge has got to get rid of some heat. I'm going to try and provide as much space or ventilation around it as possible without it being massively obvious. I'll probably put a vent at the back. These are all details which will evolve with time. The length of the kitchen is kind of like however much you want to save for it. It's however much space you want to apply to your kitchen. And I think for me, some of these cupboards in this van have proven not to be very big, and so my kitchen is going to be relatively big, and so it will have quite a lot of storage. So this is my drawing pad. So in here are all drawings which I've done throughout the van build. This is the kitchen page, and it's to basically, there's loads of dimensions on here to try and divide up the space, because it's very easy to start off with, let's say, 1.5 meters, something like that, and think, oh, it's loads of space. But once you start dividing that up, that space soon shrinks, and that's why dividing it up. And you need to take into account the thickness of your wood. So like with this carcass being made of 18mm, if you end up with, as I've got in here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that's 100mm nearly that's disappearing purely on the thickness of your carcass walls. So what I've done this morning, cut out a piece of cardboard which is roughly how big I think my kitchen will be, width-wise and lengthwise. And then with this box, I've sort of very roughed up, roughly where the kitchen is going to be, as in the vertical front and side. So that's going to be the front of the kitchen. This is going to be the end. And I'm sort of looking, how much space have I got here? Going to be the entry and exit of the van, the living space. I originally planned on 1.5 meters, which gives me a decent amount of room, but when I positioned this, which is there, I thought that's a big space really, and do I need that big space there? And so what I'm deciding to do at the minute is add 100mm, and that'll just give me a bit more storage space, and it's still a lot of room there. Here we are, first sheet, and I'm going to get quite a bit out of this actually. It's worthwhile on your drawing, doing a bit of calculation, working out how best to divide up your board. This is one panel of my kitchen, and this is a 8x4 sheet of 18mm, and I can get 4 of these out of this board, whether I do them that way or that way. And it's worthwhile mapping it out a little bit to see which gives you the best amount of board, what else you want to use. So I could have fitted these this way, so I could have one there, one there, one there, one there, and then that would have given me a nice big decent board left on there. But what was I going to use it for? What I do need is some longitudinal pieces to go down the kitchen there and there. So I need some strips of 18mm to go the full length of the kitchen. Hence, I'm cutting them this way because that will give me that whole length there of wastage and just a piece on the end. So I've cut out all my panels for this part of the kitchen, so these dividers. I'm going to do the end one with furniture board, and so that's that. I was going to just do it with plywood and paint it the same as the rest, but it's probably still going to be 18mm plywood like this is, and so I thought if I'm going to put an 18mm piece of plywood in, I might as well just put some furniture board in, because it's actually 3mm less, because I'm not going to be able to take any weight out of the end panel. This alone, these dividers, I can barely pick them up. Must be like 40 kilograms there. I could have probably done the end panel with 12mm. This is just my thought process really. It's just going to look nice, you know, when you come in the van. It's kind of like part of the theme. I've decided to do the outside piece, which is virtually always covered by the sliding door. I've got some 6mm ply, so I've made this furniture board slightly wider, and then the 6mm ply will come in there. So the back of the kitchen behind the sliding door will be 6mm ply, and that's going to be painted olive. And then I've got 4 dividing pieces, and then the piece that goes right on the end by the bed, that's the end of the kitchen if you like, that's 12mm. So what I'm doing now, I've got an 18mm router bit in there. I'm going to run it down here, and I'm going to cut out a slot, and that is where my shelves are going to fit, because that's how I'm going to fit the shelves together. I've worked out all the distances between my cupboards, and I am cutting a 5mm slot in here. Okay, so when I make this shelf, I will just make it 10mm wider, because it's going to be 5mm in each panel. So I've got a measurement that is the measurement from the edge of the tool to my guide. Draw a line on there to get that datum. This is going to be a bit noisy. I've got my new Hoover, which attaches to tools, and it's pretty good. So we're going to put a groove for the shelf in here. This is actually the 12mm one. So continuing on the kitchen, another day, lots of ideas going through my head as I am starting on this. So as you can see from a drawing, lots of little details. I've decided to put some bottle holders in, aka a cellar, because I've got this 100mm piece on the end, which I was going to put my table in, but I've now decided not to, because it's a huge space to put the table in. But the table, which is the Marvix one, has got like an aluminium plate with a locating peg, and altogether the depth of the table and the Marvix mounting plane is nearly 100mm, but the majority of the table is going to be around about 15-18mm thick, so it's a huge space just to store a table. So I'm going to attempt to store the table next to the bench seat with some holders. So then it was an idea of what am I going to do with this, and so my best idea was to come up with some bottle holders, which I've cut out there. So I'm going to put three bottles, space for 3 bottles in here, and I've also somewhere on here, which I haven't made provision for yet, I've got to have some electrics, and as it's all, majority of it is going to be fridge here and then cupboard doors, there's not a lot of space to mount anything. And I was going to put my electrics in the worktop. It's probably not the best place to put them, so there's going to be a panel here. So I've ordered a triple gang CBE socket to go on there. These are from JYSK. I think this little one is something like about £1.75. They will fit in my overhead lockers. This one, a couple of quid. What I'm doing, I'm designing these 2 cupboards here to be able to fit these in. I can literally get 6 of these in each of those cupboards. So that is a massive amount of storage. The cupboard is slightly wider than these because these are, I think they're 350 wide. Yes, they're about 340, and the cupboard's 364. So they're going to fit that way. Obviously the hinge is going to be on one side, so what I'm probably going to do is fit a little wooden runner to hold the baskets to one side. I think the beauty of these is not only are they stackable, but they're also stackable when they're down, so you can fold those down. So for instance, if you want to get something bigger in the cupboards, you either just leave a couple of baskets out or just fold them down, whatever, and then the baskets are available. You could use those, for instance, in the garage maybe. So yeah, JYSK, I think they're really good. This is a method of weight saving for the kitchen. I've done that on all of the board sections. I'm not going to do any more weight saving until I have cut out all the bits and pieces that I need to form what I want in the cupboards. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to look at areas that I don't need. So for instance, I'm also labelling these up as I go along. Board A, board B, and this is from the cab going backwards. And I've also drawn a line, which is the front, because it's easy to get them back to front on the bench. So for instance, this one is paired up. So board A, board B. So that is where the fridge is going to be. And so what I will do on that one is probably cut out the majority of that to save weight. The baskets will stack into each other. So, but the fridge is literally going to be next to this, so they're not going to fall into that. The other thing I could do is, instead of cutting the whole of the board out, I could cut strips out. So I could cut strips out of there, and that will save a decent amount of weight. So I shall continue, and I'll catch you later. Right, so continuing with this kitchen build. Never done anything like this before, as I've probably said before, and so it was a case of thinking all the stages through as to how best I could do it. I decided to do it with 18mm ply. Part of this is going to form kind of like the front frame of the kitchen. You will see some of this between the doors and the drawers. Not too much, but it'll be sanded down, and it's going to be painted with this olive green, which I found, I think it was in B&M Bargains, but this paint is quite a quality paint. It's got a good pigment. The other reason for using 18mm ply is where you want to screw stuff together, where you want to screw into it, where I want to use pocket screws, etc, etc. This is really good. It's very substantial to be able to screw into. 12mm is starting to get probably a little bit thin for a screw to go into before it starts spreading the ply. It doesn't leave much for a carcass on the front, and so I think where I was going to be putting hinges and doors and drawers, I would have had to have doubled up on that 12mm ply, and that would have been 24mm. Kitchen so far has probably used 1 and maybe a quarter sheets of 18mm ply. I'm probably going to be cutting a little bit more out. This sheet on the bench at the minute is my second sheet. So I had this idea quite early on, really, I suppose, of using this size wood and to be able to then cut out areas that you either don't see or you don't need. So for instance, this is the shelf that is underneath the fridge. These rough circles are where the fridge stands. It's got 4 kind of like rubber feet which it stands on, which is quite sort of evident. So this is going across the compartment where the fridge is. It only needs to stand on those 4 pieces. I'm quite happy with that. But what I did do, I took that idea, and these are the bottom of the drawers. So within my kitchen, there's going to be 2 large drawers at the bottom of 2 cupboards. Underneath those drawers, there doesn't need to be a full solid shelf. And so I've basically cut those down. And altogether, I'm not going to go to the extent of weighing this, but so altogether, out of those 3 shelves, if you like, I've taken this much wood, and that is a lot of wood. There's probably getting on for 10 kilograms there. I would say that this probably weighs more than these 3 shelves do now. That's that. And then these are my side panels. These are all cut out, kind of ready. I think I've got, looking at my drawing, I've just about got everything cut out on these. So these form the sides of the kitchen. This one goes along, this one's going to go along the bottom of the kick panel. So that one's going in there, if you can see that. I've already pre-drilled them, and I've already slotted that for an LED strip. So I'm going to have an LED strip along the bottom of the kick panel. And then there are 3 of these already pre-drilled, and then basically they fit into there, if you can see that, or into there. Okay, so pretty soon I'll be able to screw all of this kitchen together on this bench. Within, I think it's 20mm of this panel is the side of the fridge. So even if I use that cupboard, let's say for putting clothes in, the clothes are not going to fall anywhere. They can just rest up against the fridge. But what I might do in a minute, I'm gonna cut some wood out here, and what I can do, I'd probably leave a spar down the middle, similar to how I did these shelves. So I could in effect cut sort of that much wood out of there. I'm going to cut all these first, and then when I think I've got everything, pretty much everything sorted, I will sand them all down and assemble it. So the marathon of reducing the weight of the kitchen is over. Done the shelves, which I showed you before, the fridge shelf, and I've done my dividing panels, the carcass basically for the kitchen. So this is one, and it's been a case of going through the drawing and looking at on each side and seeing where I can take material away. There's a big drawer going here, okay, big box drawer, so I don't need all that. That doesn't need to be a complete side. Then this upper part, that is the side in the cupboard, and it's my intention to use the baskets from JYSK again, there doesn't need to be a full wall in the side of that cupboard. These shelves that are going on here, this is the bottom of the cupboard, that way up. So this is the bottom of the cupboard. I'm going to leave that as a full shelf, because if I choose not to use the baskets in the cupboard for storing other stuff for whatever reason, longer times away, etc., use that cupboard for anything. If I knew 100% I was going to use the baskets all the time, then these shelves, I could take some slots out like that. I decided to use a tank cutter like this to just make these neat, really, and it was just a quicker way of doing them, if you like, because literally all you've got to do is draw a centre line, mark off where you want the centre drill for the tank cutter, and take them off. Cut that out, then join the edges up with a straight line sort of thing, and cut them out. And it's just an easier, neater way of taking material out quickly. But I would say I've probably taken a good third out. So there's like all this, all this wood. So that is, oh, I don't know, that's a good 15 kilograms maybe. And this is a whole bucket of discs, a lot of discs. Probably 20 kilogram, good 20 kilogram, 30 kilogram out of the kitchen.